Are you over 50 and wondering what happened?
All the time.
Sometimes I look in the mirror and wonder, who's that old fart?
Yeah, I wondered that about you too.
Listen as CJ and I stumble through the wonderful world of being over 50.
Like the stereotypes of being grumpy, forgetful, and technologically inept.
And don't get me started on the mystery muscle pain.
Actually, my shoulder does hurt.
And we'll talk about other joys of aging, like funding retirement, mailing a stool sample, and working with millennials.
Join us on the downhill run to the old folks' home.
Welcome to What's My Age Again?
This is me. I'm Scott, a 59-year-old writer and would-be podcaster.
And this is me. I'm CJ. I'm 52, Aries. I enjoy long walks in the park and...
This is a podcast, not a dating app.
I know. My hobbies include competitive duck herding, heavy metal music, and not preparing for podcasts.
Well, we're on brand so far. Anyway, that's got the pleasantries out of the way. Let's talk about why we're doing this podcast.
That's a brilliant idea. How about you explain to the listeners why we're doing the podcast, and I'll just sit back and pretend that I'm listening and learning too.
Well, thanks for helping, CJ. Well, I guess we've had discussions in the past, privately, not online, but talking about when you hit 50, society tends to treat you differently. They dump you into a demographic where advertisers think your main interests are funeral insurance, over 55 developments, and erectile dysfunction medication.
There are some good erectile dysfunction medications, so I've heard.
Yes, I wouldn't like to comment on that at all. Anyway, society seems to want to farm you off to the old folks' home. But my friends, I got lots of friends at work, they're 10, even 20 years younger than I am. Well, I feel like I have friends at work. I have people who talk to me at work and they smile at me nicely. But they're younger than me. And I feel like I fit in with them, even if they may think otherwise. But I don't want to hang around with people my own age because they seem older to me, certainly older than me.
So just to clarify, this is a podcast by two guys over 50 who are essentially annoyed that society is seeing them as old, and we're complaining that we don't like hanging around with people the same age as us because they seem old.
Because we're hypocrites.
All right. I'm glad we cleared that up then.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, it's not about your actual age. It's about your attitude, your mindset, man. You can be 70, but if your attitude is that of a 40-year-old, then that's cool. That's fine.
That's groovy.
But it's groovy. It's hip. It's happening. Okay.
It's too old even for me, though.
It's gas. Okay, but if you're 40 and set in your ways and come across like a 60-year-old, that's not gas. That's not cool.
Although if you're a 60-year-old, gas is becoming a much bigger issue. And what I've found is if you're Googling all the over 50 stuff, all the media talks about is what's wrong with you and why you're a problem and how to do all these life and biohacks to make sure that your blood pressure medication is more effective and working for you properly. How to eat broccoli so that makes you better.
God. Well, the only advice we seem to get is ways about being happy with being old, as far as I can see. It's about learning to accept it, to embrace our age, to grow old gracefully.
Yeah, fuck that. I don't want to be happy about growing old. I want to know why I don't mentally feel my age. And more importantly, I want to know how to stay that way.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Well, that's lucky.
We're going to talk about why people don't tend to feel their age, what it means to us, and how society sees us, and what impact it can have on people's mental and physical health, both for good and for bad. We are going to be useful.
At our age?
At our age? Crazy, I know. While we can only talk about it from our point of view, we've done some polling, and there's even some actual scientific research on the topic.
Oh, well, this sounds like a very interesting podcast, Scott. Where can I hear it?
Well, you're hearing it right now because we're making it happen. We're changing lives, even as we speak. So I decided to do some research into the phenomenon of chronological age, which is the age that you are, versus subjective age, which is the age that you feel. Anyway, researchers Goldsmith and Hines say that teens tend to hold older age identities.
I think they're probably talking about older age identity cards there, but carry on.
Well, that's illegal, CJ. You can't have that. Young adults maintain same age identities. Okay, so if you're a young adult, then you think you're a young adult, which makes sense. Okay, older individuals, such as ourselves, I hazard a guess, tend to hold younger age identities, which is exactly what we're talking about. In fact, many people over the age of 65 reject the labels old and elderly, preferring to describe themselves as young and middle-aged or young at heart.
So these are people who don't understand the concept of what middle-aged means. So
apparently,
the people over 65 who are saying, I'm middle-aged, are expecting to live to 135. By that reckoning, if they're middle-aged, I'm still a child.
Oh, you are a child, CJ. Anyway, I've always defined old people as people who are about 20 years older than me, which is fine right now. But when I'm 70, old people are going to be 90. And when I'm 90, old people are going to be 110.
Well, no, when you're 90, old people are going to be dead.
Anyway.
Well, possibly not for the people who believe that 65 is middle-aged.
Yes. Anyway, I was mucking around on Twitter the other day, and I decided I'd use their functionality to create a Twitter poll.
That's very contemporary of you.
Very contemporary of me, because I am not a Luddite. I'm not someone who is so old that they can't use technology. I can use Twitter. I can jump puddles as well.
I can use the Twitter as well.
Anyway, the question I asked for my poll was, we'd love your help in getting some data on how you feel about getting older. And I asked, do you feel your age? Do you feel younger than your age? Or do you feel older than your age?
They're three very good choices.
They're pretty much the only choices you can have. Okay, so these were the results. 69% of people... Jesus Christ. 69% of people say they feel younger than their years. And some comments they made were, well, certainly not old in the way our parents were old. I just need to check. Did they actually say it like that? Well, they were typing. I'm just interpreting how they typed.
Right. There's possibly some kind of concerns about this, but carry on.
Okay. I am 69 years, still
You met a
smoke.
69-year-old.
What is
I'm
it?
old. I'm old and weak, and I don't know how to type on these internet things.
I am 69 years. I still smoke stupidly, still like a bit of weed now and then, drink socially, but sometimes feel like a leftover from the age of Aquarius.
But it's actually, technically, that's probably an appropriate voice.
It probably is.
For that answer, yeah. Except with a at the end.
Yes. I'm nearly 72, but I feel 50 until my knee gives way and my back aches. Also, if I swear, the kids treat me like I'm an adolescent with a lot of tut-tutting.
I'm pretty sure that the use of the phrase tut-tutting is going to peg you as a 72-year-old anyway. So I feel 50 except for when my knee gives out or my back gives out.
And people tut-tut at me. Well, interestingly, while you and I feel younger, others felt older. 11% of people said they feel older than their years. They made comments like, I am young. I deal with health issues that aren't obvious to others. When I mention how I feel, I'm often met with, you're too young to feel that way. Why do people fail to see that ailments know no age limits?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. I hadn't considered that viewpoint.
Me neither. We are very insightful podcasters, though. No doubt about that.
Let's move on.
Yeah, finally, 20% of people said they feel their age.
I'm assuming that was the 20 to 24-and-a-half-year-olds who answered the poll, or the people who misinterpreted the poll as something about their Pornhub search history.
So anyway, I actually personally bucked that trend.
Is that a Pornhub search history gag?
Bucking the trend, baby. At 24, I was like an old man. And the reason was I actually got married to someone at 25. I was married at 24 to someone who already had a child. And the child was 3. And so I went from being really like young and stupid, like most young men are, and drinking and doing all that stuff, to being like super mature, like everyone like pretending to be mature. But it actually, I faked it till I made it, and I actually really made it to the point where at 25, I think I had a house and a mortgage and a 5-year-old child, and I was in Rotary. I was about to become the president of Rotary.
Is that even legal?
Yeah, and I was hanging out with all these guys who were like in their 50s. So I was this younger guy, and I was hanging out with all these old dudes in Rotary. And
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pause there and ask: how does a 25-year-old nearly become president, or is on the brink of becoming the president of a Rotary club?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, I was in business at the time, in the family business. So that was part of the thing. Was my dad was a Rotarian, and it was kind of expected. It was part of the thing of your networking at the time. Back nowadays, you don't do that for networking. We're talking back in the 1980s, and that was still a thing. It was at the tail end of when that was the thing you did for networking. So I did that to try to network with businesses. And so I got in there, and of course, like any service club, as soon as they see new blood, they desperately try to drag them in and make them do a job.
Vampire style.
Like vampire style. It's basically what they do is they get you in and they go, okay, what can we do? What job can you do? Because we're all sick of doing this job. We've all been in this club for like 50 years. We've all been president 15 times. We need some other person to do this fucking job. And I walked in there and they're like, good, you can be president next year. It's like, what the fuck?
Let's just pause here and say Rotary does a whole range of very useful things, and I'm sure that they're a very interesting club full of useful and fun people.
Look, I raised loads of money for very good causes, so it was definitely worthwhile. But it was not the thing that a 25-year-old person does. And as time went by, I sold the business and started doing other things. And I actually started to age backwards.
Benjamin Button style.
Yeah, very, very much Benjamin Button style. And the older I get, the less conservative I am, the more I'm like literally, I became a married man, like a monogamous married man, very young. Now I'm kind of exploring all those wild oats at 59 that I didn't explore when I was in my early 20s.
That explains the plethora of erectile dysfunction medication that you're getting on your social media.
Well, now they've heard this, they'll definitely be getting it. That's me. That's my story. So I'm definitely I don't fit that mold. Definitely now, I feel younger than my years, but I think some of that's a reaction to the fact that I was an old fart when I was really young. So now I'm like, I need to reclaim my youth in a weird way, which makes me sound like I'm having a midlife crisis, but I'm actually not. Honestly, not having a midlife crisis. Believe me.
I'm not. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to jump into my convertible and drive off. There actually is, not to put too fine a point on it, we're actually too old for a midlife crisis now. But there's a thing now called a late life crisis because we're actually living longer than we were before, which we'll talk about in a future episode. So we're now old enough to have two crises. Thank you. Sure, if you want to say it that way. Okay. I like to be flippant and be a bit more flexible.
Fair enough. That's one other thing I'd like to say, though, just going back. I was actively trying to avoid a midlife crisis because I got to a certain age. I felt the need to change careers, do all the kind of things I was early at that because I started being serious about shit much like younger. So I was probably at 37 when I was like having like what may have been a midlife crisis. But I'd seen three of my I had three brothers-in-law. They all had midlife crises around about 45. And I was trying to preempt the midlife crisis. And I failed. I didn't actually have the crisis. My ex-wife had the crisis and then precipitated me having a crisis because of her crisis.
Right.
So you can't avoid the crisis. You just got to embrace it.
Right. Or failing that, you've just shortened your life expectancy by having your midlife crisis early.
Yeah, well, I was going to say I hope that I'm not having a late life crisis at 59 because that makes me feel like I'm about to drop off the perch imminently. So hopefully not. Anyway, let's get back to our Twitter poll. Here are some other interesting comments that we heard. I don't know how I was supposed to feel. I've never been this age before.
I'm not 100% sure that person could have typed that themselves. And my personal apologies to whoever answered this poll and actually answered this poll generally, but especially that particular person. Sorry, although I'm sorry to that person who typed that comment. Thank you for answering our Twitter poll.
You're a very good person. Okay, here's another. Okay, I'll try not to be quite so silly. Yeah, it's not that simple. Parts of me are still 17, not many. Some are 25.
Your voice.
But the bits that govern day-to-day movement seem like 70 plus. So which bits of you are you thinking about? My age is 67, but my brain is, well, I hope, still mid-20s capacity and with more experience. So what we can take from the technical Twitter poll is that it supports the research of Goldsmith and Hines, which says that there is a mismatch between chronological age and subjective age, which is common, and that research says that it's normal for most age groups. So the question really is, what are the implications of this in the real world?
And that's after the break.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Scott, I was reading a book the other day called Funny You Should Ask. Sometimes life and death don't go quite according to plan. It's quite a good book, and I was reading it because we've been paid to advertise it. It's a collection of...
In that case, read away.
It's a collection of 6 short stories, but I like the idea of it because it's 3 that are humorous and 3 that are odd. So it's the blurb on the back is, isn't it funny how funny can be either humorous or odd? Funny You Should Ask, Sometimes Life and Death Don't Go Quite According to Plan, explores the irony, amusement, and drama of life, death, and what happens in between in 6 thought-provoking stories, some humorous, some odd.
Thought-provoking. Well, that's good.
Let me give you an insight into one of the first stories, which is, it just says, when Brandon, a middle-aged guy with a natural talent for mistakes, stumbles across an unusual genie, he has only 3 wishes to try not to follow his usual path, which is actually an interesting story because the genie is essentially, it seems to be based on Patrick Swayze's character from Point Break, which I quite enjoyed. So that's one of the funny ha-ha ones. So the ad is, grab this if you're on the mood for something short and odd. Isn't it funny how funny can be humorous or odd? 6 funny short stories about how sometimes life, death don't go quite according to plan. Asterisk, grab this in the mood if
ad reading.
Grab this if you're in the mood for something short and odd, not recommended as a pickup line. Funny You Should Ask. Sometimes life and death don't go quite according to plan. Available from Amazon, all good Amazon stores near you. It's available on ebook and both the backs, paper and hard.
Okay, excellent.
Get your copy now. And it's also available on Kindle Unlimited, so you can read it for free if you've got Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that sounds great.
It doesn't have pictures, but it's short. It has short stories, so it means that I'm not being accused of hogging the bathroom.
Excellent.
Back to the show.
And we're back. So, what are the implications in the real world?
I feel like you just said that. But anyway, well, I can do research too. And I found that according to the research document, Fact or Fiction, Stereotypes of Older Australians Research Report 2013.
Oh, it's current research then.
Well, it's run by the government. So the fact that they've actually knocked one out is probably pretty good.
Fair enough.
So, and the fact that it's 2013 and it's about old people, and so they don't care because all the people they've surveyed are probably dead by now anyway. But it's essentially a report around aging within Australia, and it interviewed and conducted research for different age groups and demographics to determine how people felt about the concept of aging. And what they found was that younger Australians find it extremely difficult to identify any benefits associated with aging. Now, there was lots of quotes, direct quotes in there. My favourite was the 18 to 25-year-old answer when it came to aging, "It's terrible." It's like, well, yes, yeah, I'm with you, kid, on that one. When you go to the other end of the spectrum, it's not much better news when the quotes are, "I see my reflection in a shop window and think, who's that old fart? Stop following me." And
oh God, I've felt that.
I used to work with a guy years ago who he just turned 40, and he came into work one day and he said, "I'm not old, am I? Like, I've literally just turned 40. I'm not old." I'm like, "No, Wayne, you're not old. Why are you saying you're old?" And he's like, "Because I was walking down the street today and this kid in a skateboard came past me and went, 'Get out of the way, old cunt.'" My favourite comment from the older spectrum, from the Fact or Fiction Stereotypes of Older Australians Research Report, my favourite comment was, "Getting old, it's best to avoid it."
Well, there's only one way to avoid it. I'm not quite sure I want to go that way. I'm not ready for the sweet release of death yet.
It does make me want to look deeper into what was going on in that person's life when they filled out that survey.
Well, honestly, I mean, obviously, one way we're talking about this is because we're encountering some of the problems you face when you do get over 50, the way people view you and all that. So I can understand people saying it's best to avoid it. I mean, what I would suggest is it's best to actually sort of come to terms with it. But yeah, I can see why people would say it's best to avoid it.
True. Especially when, according to the report, over 50% of Australians feel that older people are more likely to be lonely or isolated, are more likely to be forgetful, and they feel that older people don't like being told what to do by someone younger.
Well, the good news about that is if you do feel lonely or isolated, you'll forget it soon. There's a silver lining there.
I was just about to get the razor blades out, but I've forgotten what I was going to do with them.
Forgetfulness can save your life.
It also found that 13% of Australians tend to speak louder to older people as they assume they cannot hear that well. And I found this one interesting. 11% of Australians are happy to tell jokes about older people.
I'm surprised it's only 11%, because the number of old jokes I hear is just unbelievable. And the fact that people say shit to you, they feel they can, like, okay, I'm follicularly challenged. So,
for those of you who aren't follicularly challenged, Scott's bald.
Yeah. So there's so many people who think that that's okay to sort of, rub you on the head or make jokes about it. And it's like, fuck you. I'm not going to say you're a fat bastard.
Or a fucking weirdo for rubbing me on the head.
Exactly.
What are you, Benny Hill?
Yeah. But honestly, it's the final frontier of jokes that you can tell, that you can still make fun of someone for being old.
Well,
You can't make fun of them for being a woman or black or green or whatever. And that's fair enough. I'm not saying you should. But what I'm saying is why are those things bad, but you can make fun of someone for being old?
Fair enough. Although you can apparently still make fun of people for being Italian. So if you
That's me, Mario.
exactly. So March the 10th is official Mario Day.
Okay.
And Google on March the 10th, so keep your eye out for this next March the 10th, Google Maps changes their little car icon to a Mario Kart.
Well, that's cute.
Then when you put your trip and you press start, it goes, let's go. So apparently Italian is still okay.
Irish is thinking, well, is Irish still okay? I don't even know. I tell an Irish joke.
It's probably getting going down a rabbit hole that we shouldn't go down. If you have a problem with let's go, contact Google. So I think if you replace old with a race or a particular demographic or a stereotype, it's not going to be appropriate to tell that as a joke. So what I did was I decided to have a look at what are some of the over 50 jokes, because apparently over 50 is old, that are on the internet.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
And you don't even need to go to, for these ones, you don't even need to go to the dark web like you need to go for some of the other jokes, if you're looking for any of the other jokes.
So have you been on the dark web recently looking for inappropriate jokes?
I have not. Here's some jokes I found from a website that I'm not even going to say what website it is, but this is a health and wellness website. So this is a we're on your side website.
They're looking after your mental health.
Exactly. Not a we hate old people website full of biohacks and how to make your wheat germ last longer so that it gives you a better something or other in your blood.
Your BMI. It should be all that kind of shit. Yeah.
So it's a we're on your side thing.
Yep.
The page begins with, it's funny because it's true. Now let's just fact check the phrase, it's funny because it's true.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest that's as accurate as the person who says before telling you a story, I'm going to tell you a funny story. No, you're not.
Well, sometimes it must happen. Sometimes
that's probably less likely than most. It aligns with my theory of when you're sitting in traffic and somebody else in traffic is playing loud music, and the music that's being played is exponentially related to the amount that people don't want to hear it.
Okay, so that accounts for the little doof cars.
And everything. I heard somebody the other day sitting in traffic, their music turned up to about 14, MacArthur Park.
Oh, God. The original version or the disco version?
No, the original version. I don't know what's going on in that person's life, and I don't want to.
Someone left their cake out in the rain, though.
So let me tell you some...
You have to be over 50 to get that reference.
Non-cake-related gags from this health and wellness website. From the page titled, Jokes to Tell People When They Turn 50.
Because that'll make them very happy.
Yeah. So, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Halfway.
Halfway who?
You're halfway through life. That's not even that's not even a joke. It's a threat.
That's
Hands up, everybody who thinks they're going to be alive 10 years from now. Hey, not so fast, you group over here.
Oh, God. It's like saying, knock, knock. Who's there?
Death.
I was trying to substitute an ethnic group in there, but I was thinking I can't say that, and I can't say that, and I can't say that because you can't say those things.
No.
But you can say it about being old.
Hold that thought, because
Okay.
because the older people like the knock jokes. So here's another
because
knock.
they do. Because they're so... That's the kind of thing that we all tell each other all the time.
Exactly.
I ring you, I call you and say, hey, CJ, I've got a new knock joke for you.
Or you just turn up on the at the front and go, who is it?
It's pretty hard at your place.
That's what she said. So, knock.
Jesus. Who's there?
Me.
Me who?
Oh no, the forgetfulness has started already.
God. I mean, I don't know about the forgetfulness. I mean, if you're going
Good work.
if you're going to go there, just say the Alzheimer's has kicked in already, or let's just totally go. Let's just
knock.
push it to the limit.
Who's there? Me. Me who? Me. I'm gaslighting Grandpa. Here's a couple that are not following the traditional knock joke.
Oh well, they're not going to be popular then because they're not following the knock format.
No, but they are funny because they're true.
Absolutely.
You've turned. Actually, these are more one-liners, I think, rather than gags. You've just turned 50 when your face has more wrinkles than an elephant's backside.
Oh, jeez.
Fuck you. That's going to win you. How to win friends and influence people. If you're at a party and you want to meet some new people, hey, I understand you've just turned 50. How could you tell? Your face has got more wrinkles than an elephant's backside.
Well, I mean, I've finally worked out an ethnic group we can put in there. Yeah. You're a Caucasian when your face has more wrinkles than an elephant's backside.
I don't know. I know technically that isn't inappropriate, but it just feels as though it should be.
But it illustrates my point very nicely, I think.
Yes. So it is. It is technically it should be inappropriate to make fun of older people with things like, you're thankful when someone tells you that you have lipstick on your teeth because it means you still have teeth.
Well, I don't wear lipstick.
Well, or someone else's lipstick, which puts a whole different spin on it. But this is for people over 50. How many people over 50 don't have teeth?
You're a bogan if you don't have teeth.
If you're in Melbourne, you're a Collingwood supporter. But that's at any age. You don't have to be over 50 to not have teeth. But just, the stereotype of, yes, well, you're over 50, so you won't have any teeth.
Clearly you won't have teeth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting some action means all those prunes your doctor is making you eat are doing their job.
God.
Firstly, what fucking doctor is saying, do you know what you need to do? You need to eat more prunes.
Well,
You have to go back to the 1800s to get doctors to say that?
A friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and I don't know why I felt it was appropriate, but I shared the fact that I was unusually blocked up in that department. And she suggested prune juice, which I drank, and I regretted it because, my God, that was effective. It was too bloody effective.
You think you regretted it? I'm regretting it.
You don't want to talk about my bowel movements?
See, this is why people make fun of people over 50, Scott. Because
the person who told me to drink prune juice was 45. What can I say?
They've clearly got a good sense of humour. And did they tell you to do it just before they left?
Well, they certainly weren't there when the ship went down, so to speak.
And also, Were they medically trained?
No.
So it's not a doctor making you eat prunes.
No.
Then
It was a concerned citizen.
For listeners, Scott is currently having a heart attack.
Because I'm over 50. So,
Right.
these jokes can have a negative impact. Apparently.
Yeah, because they encourage people to tell stories about drinking prune juice and shitting.
I'm crying now. It's made me very sad. Anyway, back to the script, which we have, the very loose script we have. These jokes can have a negative impact.
Like your bowel motions.
Not anymore. Just the once.
This has got to get cut out, but it's got to go on a blooper reel.
Well, these jokes can have a negative impact, particularly when the joke teller is younger than the recipient.
Well, they would do if the recipient could hear them.
Well, we can tell jokes about over 50s because we're over 50. So it seems that essentially the reason we get ads for seniors insurance and retirement homes is because society sees older people as old people. Bad drivers, bad with technology, slow and in the way, forgetful, grumpy, sick, poor, and boring.
Yeah, I tend to see pretty well everybody that way, but I can see why people who are over 50 rebel against that, because it says to me that part of the reason it feels odd to feel our age is because the older we get, the more society has expectations and stereotypes of us that we don't actually believe in or fit or follow.
Well, I concur, and that's far deeper than I expected of you on a Sunday night.
No, thank you.
Or any time, really.
I think. Talking about society's perceptions, though, it did make me think how accurate actually are they, because maybe it's just we're on the wrong side of things, and in fact, in reality, 50 years old. So I had a look, and here's some things that I found out that will happen when you turn 50. Now, just from there was a lot of combining the gender information. What I found interesting and unsurprising and disappointing was that the majority of articles that turned up for women were related to how they look.
Right.
And the majority of articles related to men talked about strength and muscle mass. And that was the big concerns for each of those groups. So apparently women have no concern about muscle mass and men have no concern about how they look after they're 50.
Okay. Well,
now, according to...
Definitely wrong there. I mean, I couldn't give a crap about muscle mass, but I don't want to look like the Elephant Man.
Well, you don't want to look like the elephant backside man.
I am not an animal.
They do say, I read that there is a point in your life where you've got to make a decision between your face or your body. So your weight, especially weight and health wise, is that if you want a lean body, it means you're going to have an older looking face. So if you want to have a younger looking face, you're going to have a chubbier body. And I will put the disclaimer on that's probably a massive stereotype. And I have no empirical research to back that up aside from I read that somewhere.
Well, I heard that somewhere as well. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about like Clint Eastwood as an example of that. Someone who has, for a man of his age, has an amazing body, but has the head of a prune. Or an elephant's backside.
Yeah.
Do you feel lucky, punk?
Do you feel lucky, punk? I'm going to drink this prune juice. So apparently our brain has more functionality and is using more components and being used more fully at 50 than it is at 25.
My brain has more functionality.
Some people's brain have more functionality at 50 than they do at 25. And in most surveys, 95% of people say that they are either satisfied or more satisfied with their lives after 50 than they were before 50.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say that for sure.
So it's not necessarily after 50, it's all downhill, apparently. However,
It's a perception.
yes. And I think the perception comes from things like the stats that 40% of people over 50 have hearing loss at some level. And the thing that I thought with that, though, is that because people over 50 we have naturally degenerating, it's harder to say than I would have expected, hearing function, but it's probably also because we were the first kind of age group to experience all these awesome bands with really loud speakers, and nobody said, don't stand next to that speaker because you're going to go deaf.
The number of times I walked out of a band or a club with ears ringing for the next day, I couldn't count. It's unbelievable.
That was the sense of the rating that we'd use of whether it was a good concert or not. Because you go and tell people, it's like, oh, it was amazing. Like it's been 4 weeks and I still can't hear anything over 34 hertz.
I thought the bass was going to stop my heart.
And for females, apparently 51 is the average age for menopause.
Yeah, well, I know menopause is no fun. I've actually been with a couple of women who've gone through menopause, and it was not fun at all for them. It wasn't much fun for me either, but it was less fun for them, I got to say. The hot flushes are no joke. I mean, people joke about that. So I definitely, as a man, feel lucky that we don't go through that.
The other thing I thought I'd have a look at is, if we want to look at society's perceptions of people over 50 as you're old now and you're not very useful to society and it's terrible and getting old is bad. And I thought, let's have a look at people over 50 that everybody should know.
Okay.
And see whether they actually match up with those kind of societal perceptions. So do we think of these people as decrepit or more wrinkles than an elephant's backside or hearing issues or difficult or grumpy or any of these things?
Okay.
Keanu Reeves, 58.
Oh, yeah, definitely an old fart.
Yeah. I know
Definitely.
The John Wick Retires is a very slow and not very exciting movie in the sequels.
Although I have to say, John Wick with the beard, he looks great, John Wick with a beard. They shaved him for the latest Bill and Ted, and he did look older. But he looks so cool with a beard.
When I watched the new Bill and Ted, I went, they've made them look older. I reckon that there was some kind of, and I've got no research to back this up, but I reckon that they actually did some sort of makeup to make them look older than they were because they didn't look old enough. Because when I saw them, I went, he doesn't look that old in real life.
No, well, I think it was the no beard. I think the beard, as for a man over 50, probably disguises a few sins, which is probably why, I mean, this is totally subjective, but I feel like women over 50 look older than men over 50. It's because men over 50 can hide it a little bit more, because I'm sure that I'd look even older than I look now if I didn't have a beard.
Okay. I've been told that I look younger without a beard, but I look better with a beard.
Yeah, okay. I think with a beard, well, we both have kind of quite a lot of white in our beards. So that does that. I've tried to get mine shorter because I have kids telling me I look like Santa if I even got a little bit longer than it is now. So I've been keeping it really trim. But I do think it can disguise quite a lot of sins in the face.
Yes, that's true. Also, if you've not heard that women can wear makeup?
Well, that's true. But then you don't need so much makeup you can put on before you start looking like sort of the Joker. So who else is over 50?
So, also over 50, Paul Rudd. Now, I will say I will.
He looks about 12.
Yeah, I will give the disclaimer that Keanu Reeves and Paul Rudd are fairly common knowledge that they are actually vampires. So,
Yes.
so their age is not necessarily that. But Salma Hayek,
Now, she's hot.
I know, and has always been and will be until she's 112, 56.
My God.
Yeah. Elle Macpherson, we all looked at Elle Macpherson when we were younger, 58.
God. I mean, I can't say I've seen a picture of her recently, but I assume she's probably aged okay.
She looks pretty well the same as she did when she was 48, 38, maybe not 28, but just
Okay.
yeah. I don't think anybody's going, oh, no, I think she's a bit too much for me. Yeah. Let's move on. George Clooney.
He looks good.
Yeah,
But he looks he's close to his age, I guess.
You reckon? But then,
Close.
even if you taking the looks part out of it, if you look at like what he's doing, so society would suggest that somebody at 61 years old is going, I'm transitioning to retirement now, and I'm no longer really very employable, and I'm not going to learn any new skills, and I'm quite set in my ways.
Well, that's not really George, is it?
No, so he's 61. So he's older than us. As is Steve Carell from The Office and 40-Year-Old Virgin and a whole bunch of other things, who I was quite surprised he's 60.
God, because when he did 40-Year-Old Virgin, he would have been 50?
Yeah. Oh, hang on, that's false advertising. Check this one out. This one really. How old do you reckon Jason Statham is?
Well, yeah, that's a hard one because he's a kind of indeterminate age, Jason Statham. He's not one thing or the other. He's a pretty fit fella, though. I'd be guessing he was in his 40s.
55.
55?
55.
Okay.
So he's not what I would suggest is the standard society perception of a 55-year-old. Just to round it out with some others, Brad Pitt, 58, not what you would expect.
Yep.
Sandra Bullock, 58. Tom Cruise, 60, still seems to be doing all right movies-wise.
He does seem to be doing okay, yeah.
Yeah, also a vampire, but let's not focus on the wrong part of the story. But I thought this was an interesting thing just as a balance to all of that. If we look back to, if you remember Thurston Howell III in Gilligan's Island.
Okay. Yeah.
Who was the Thurston Howell and Lovey, I think it was, or whatever. Who were the old rich people. So it was played by a guy named Jim Backus. He was 50.
God.
When that was on. So he was playing, I don't know what age he was supposed to be, but he was 50. And that doesn't really align to what a 50-year-old is these days.
Well, that gets into something we will talk about in the future about people in the past looked older. Clearly, those people aren't hitting those societal perceptions.
Yeah. Also, it does make me feel slightly disappointed that I'm not doing much better in life than I am when I compare myself against people of the same age.
Yeah, well, you can look at, I mean, Hitler was younger than me and he achieved an awful lot before, he shot himself in the head.
Did he though?
Well, I wouldn't say it was good stuff he achieved, but he achieved something. He didn't. I haven't taken over the Third Reich.
Thank you for bringing us Godwin's Law in our first podcast. For those of you who don't know what Godwin's Law is, it's the concept that given enough time, any conversation or series of comments on the internet will eventually turn to Hitler and the Nazis. Scott's managed to do that.
Like Hitler now.
Scott's managed to do that in less than 56 minutes in our first podcast. Well done. Which brings us to our final segment, bad segues. In this case, listeners' mail.
Which, of course, we don't have yet because this is our first podcast.
Ah, yes, you make a valid point. So if you're listening, and if you're still listening and would like to get in touch with us,
I doubt anyone's still listening.
If you'd like to get in touch with us with a topic you'd like to hear about,
Or a complaint. No complaints. No complaints.
if there's something you'd like to hear about, or a comment or a story, you can hit us up on the socials.
What are you, 9? You can use email. You did set up the email, didn't you?
Of course, I set up the email. That was my job, and I'm a responsible adult.
So what is our email address, CJ?
It is theoldfolkshome69 at gmail.com.
And do we have any other social accounts?
Of course we do. I set up the bird one and the
Twitter.
What did you call me? And the face thing one and the Insta stamp thing Chan one.
Okay.
As well.
And what are they called? How can they find us? On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Well, it's important to keep things consistent, so they can search for the Old Folks Home 69.
Yeah, luckily we're not steering into the stereotype there. Or maybe the 69 part doesn't hit the stereotype, I'm not sure. Perhaps you could write in and tell us about that.
And I think we're done here. So, Scott, what's the most important thing you've learned from episode 1 of What's My Age Again?
I think the most important thing I've learned from episode 1 is that I thought you were joking when you said you weren't taking this podcast seriously.
Not sure of your point. So if you found society's expectations don't align to who you are,
or your subjective age does not match your chronological age, you can get in touch via email at theoldfolkshome69@gmail.com.
and you can tell us about your experiences of being over 50.
And remember, if symptoms persist, see your doctor.
So join us for the next episode where we delve into the story of Emil, a man who tried to change his age by deed poll.
See you next time on What's My Age Again.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hey CJ, did you know I'd written a book?
Yeah, you've been going on about it all year.
Oh yeah. But guess what? It's finally being released in March 2023.
So why did it take so long?
That's a long story.
And so is the book, but clearly not an interesting one to the listeners, I imagine.
I hope the book's interesting, but anyway, maybe the story's not interesting. But anyway, I wanted to tell the listeners that it was a big history of big ideas. All the ideas that made humans human. And it tracks the development of humans from the earliest hominids right up to the fall of Rome.
Sounds like a terrible idea. Sounds like a history book.
Yes, it's a history book, but it's a light-hearted, amusing book, and it has lots of specially created memes for people like you who can only look at the pictures.
And is this book called Facebook?
No, don't tell me you've forgotten already.
It's actually a question for the listeners, Scott. That's how ads work.
Oh, okay. So anyway, it's called Lightbulb Moments in Human History from Cave to Colosseum, and it's really fun.
That's what you say.
No, don't trust me. Listen to the reviews. Unlike other books that offer up humanity's achievements in a top 10 fashion, Lightbulb Moments in Human History is written in a continual narrative from the witty and humorous perspective of its author. Wit aside, this book is expertly written and packed with interesting information and educational insight into the past. Whether you're a history buff or looking to expand your historical horizons, this book is a great read. How It Works magazine, October 2022.
Oh shit, that actually does sound interesting. Can I pick up a copy of this now, or do I have to wait until this so-called March 2023?
Well, you do have to wait till March 2023 if you want to get a copy of it in your hot little hands anytime soon. But you can pre-order if you're in the pre-March 2023 era. But after March 2023, you can get it at all good bookstores. Even some pretty crappy bookstores will probably have it. Certainly online, you'll be able to get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Dimmicks.
Fuck that, I haven't got time to wait for this. I'm going to work out how I can get March 2023 and pick up a copy now.
Okay, well, you go time travelling forward and see what you can find.